Imagine this, a defense so dominant, so stifling, that analysts were calling it potentially the best defense in modern NBA history.
Seriously, the hype was real.
This was the 2025 Oklahoma City Thunder. They finished 68-14, just absolutely locking down the league. Stacked, right? Lou Dort, Cason Wallace, Jalen Williams, Alex Caruso, multiple all-world defenders.
Yeah, the narrative was basically nobody had really figured out how to consistently score on these guys. They just swarmed you.
Exactly. And then they run smack into the Minnesota Timberwolves in the Western Conference Finals. And by Game 3, that supposedly impenetrable wall, it was shredded.
Completely dismantled.
And the question just exploded everywhere. How in the world did Anthony Edwards do that?
It's such a dramatic turnaround, isn't it? We've gone through a whole stack of sources for this deep dive. The Ringer, ESPN, SI.com, basketballnews.com, tons of stuff. And they really paint this picture of a rapid, intense tactical battle unfolding over just 3 games.
Absolutely. Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today is to pull apart these sources and really understand that incredible 3-game evolution. We're tracing Anthony Edwards' journey, from being totally bottled up in Game 1 to just dominating by Game 3.
What were the specific adjustments? How did Minnesota's overall strategy shift?
Right. And what does this whole saga, the struggle, the response, the triumph, what does it tell us about where Ant is in the league right now?
Yeah, this deep dive is all about unpacking how he did it. Not just that he overcame this legendary defense, but the mechanics of it. What did he see? What did he change on the fly?
And what does it mean going forward? How do teams even try to defend him now?
So, as we peel back the layers here, think about your own expectations.
Yeah.
When you heard OKC's historic D going up against Edwards and the Wolves, did you really anticipate him finding a way through that quickly?
Probably not that quickly.
Right. So Game 1, the Thunder's plan was crystal clear, and all the sources hammered this home, clogged the paint. That was the core principle.
Shut it down inside.
Exactly. Eliminate those driving lanes, the finishing opportunities that really power Minnesota's offense, especially Ant's game. And he felt it right away. He even said after Game 1, every time I go to the rim, it's like 4 people in the paint.
You could see it. And man, that strategy worked like a charm early on. OKC just shut off everything else that had powered Minnesota's offense. They forced the Wolves into a postseason low, just 20 points in the paint. 20.
Unbelievable. And you saw Edwards' frustration building. He was, as the sources said, relentlessly blanketed by Wallace, those elite perimeter guys.
Every drive just seemed to hit that wall of help defenders. It led to awkward kickouts, turnovers, just looked messy.
And the numbers from Game 1 really tell that story, don't they?
Yeah.
Just 18 points for Edwards. And look at the shooting, 5 of 13. Tough.
And the killer stat, 5 turnovers, only 1 assist. That swarming OKC defense was absolutely living up to its reputation in that first game, making his life miserable.
But here's where it gets interesting, and a lot of the sources picked up on this. Edwards' reaction after that tough loss, there wasn't any, despair.
Nope. Just pure fire.
Yeah.
That quote became legendary instantly. I gotta shoot more. I only took 13 acking shots.
Yeah.
Gotta go watch some film and pick it apart. We'll figure it out. You hear that and you know, okay, Game 1 wasn't him being beaten.
No, it was a wake-up call. Like one writer put it, he wasn't defeated, he was just getting started on cracking the code.
Love that.
And you could see that determination translating in Game 2. Now, Minnesota still didn't start great overall, but Edwards himself, he started finding some answers. He was getting on the floor more, drawing contact, really pushing to the rim with renewed aggression.
Yes. And the way he attacked was different. It wasn't just trying to bull his way through 4 guys anymore.
Right.
When that help came collapsing in, he was much quicker, much more decisive about kicking it out to open shooters. Or if he got deep, finding ways to actually convert those looks, even with traffic around. The adjustments were starting to show.
Definitely. And the box score reflected that step up. The sources started talking about elite star production. He drops 32 points in Game 2.
Big jump.
Huge. 12 of 26 shooting, so still working for it, but also grabbed 9 rebounds, dished out 6 assists. He was refusing to let them double team him without consequence.
Making them pay.
Exactly. Reading that help defense, throwing those timely cross-court passes, you saw those fine wide open guys, and crucially, hitting those smooth mid-range jumpers. That started pulling defenders out of the paint.
That mid-range game became key. Now, gotta point out, Minnesota still lost Game 2, and by 15.
Yeah, the team shooting was still an issue.
Right. The sources mentioned cold shooting from the rest of the roster, so even with Ant going off, that OKC defense was still making life tough for the Wolves as a whole.
And the reports highlighted how hard OKC still had to work to contain him. Even with the loss, the skeptics online might still point to his shooting percentage. 46.2% isn't bad, but not hyper efficient, and especially the three-point shooting, just 1 for 9.
Still showed the pressure was intense.
For sure. It was a fiery resurgence, a masterclass on adjustments from Edwards himself, even in a losing effort. But the dam hadn't totally broken yet for the team.
Until Game 3.
Oh yeah. Game 3. Everything changed. Reports described the Thunder looking, well, flat. Players even admitted they simply didn't match Minnesota's intensity.
And Minnesota just pounced, attacked right from the tip-off, pushing the pace like crazy, getting out in transition.
It fueled that insane first quarter.
Yeah.
What was it, 34-14?
34-14.
Yeah.
The game basically turned into a rout almost immediately. It was kind of shocking to watch.
And Edwards, he was the demolition man.
Yeah.
Just complete dominance.
Yeah.
He was blowing by defenders with reckless speed, hitting multiple pull-ups right over Lou Dort, who's an incredible defender.
One of the best.
And then delivered that thunderous dunk. You know the one? That felt like the exclamation point on OKC's struggles.
It really did. And here's the payoff from Game 2's adjustments. OKC had to send help. They had no choice. And Edwards was just picking them apart, kicking out consistently. And this time, the role players, Naz Reid, Nikhil Alexander-Walker, Terrence Shannon Jr., whoever was out there, they were knocking down their open shots.
Huge difference.
He finished Game 3 with another monster line. 30 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, almost identical to Game 2, but this time.
This time it led to a historic win. A staggering 42-point drubbing. Think about that context again, this supposedly historic defense.
Yeah.
They suffered their franchise's worst playoff loss ever, handed to them by Anthony Edwards and the Wolves.
Wow. So that stifling defense wasn't just beaten. It was, like the sources said, utterly demolished.
Totally. The whole idea that nobody has figured out how to beat them, completely exposed. OKC was suddenly desperately at the drawing board.
Okay, so let's get into the real nuts and bolts here, the heart of our deep dive. How did he actually figure it out? How did he dismantle this elite D? When we synthesize all the sources, a few key adjustments really jump out between Game 1 and Games 2 and 3.
Okay, first thing, his movement off the ball. Huge change. Game 1, you saw a lot of him just standing, waiting for the ball, going into ISO.
Right, kind of stagnant.
Yeah. But starting in Game 2, he was using every inch of the floor. Cutting, relocating, making his defender chase him all over instead of just letting them park in the paint and wait.
Made them work before you even got the ball.
Exactly. And then, crucially, he forced OKC to respect his scoring outside the paint. Those mid-range pull-ups, the step-back jumpers, he started hitting those consistently.
Which does what?
It pulls defenders like Dort or Wallace further out. They can't just sag off him anymore. And that creates the driving lanes that were completely shut down in Game 1.
Okay, so he opens up the court by hitting outside shots. What about when they doubled him? Because they still tried that.
Oh yeah, they had to. But he became a lethal passer out of those doubles. Instead of forcing a bad shot through two guys, he was much calmer, throwing those timely cross-court passes, finding open shooters, or sometimes flipping quick passes to streaking teammates, cutting when the defense rotated.
Turning their pressure against them, making them pay for sending help.
Precisely. He also got way more aggressive attacking closeouts. When a defender flies out to contest his shot, he used their momentum against them, drove hard, and started drawing contact.
Getting to the free throw line, easy points, gets defenders in foul trouble. Smart basketball.
Very smart. And his whole offensive approach just became less predictable. It wasn't just speed, speed, speed all the time.
Right, you mixed it up.
Yeah, varied his pace. Explosive drive sometimes, sure. But other times, slower, more deliberate attacks, setting up pull-ups or passes. His accuracy was impressive too. Sources noted him hitting close to 50% overall, and his range forced OKC to guard him tight everywhere.
And it wasn't only Ant, right? The team strategy evolved too.
Definitely. Coach Finch and the staff deserve credit. They incorporated specific plays, using pick and rolls more effectively, often with Reid or McDaniel setting the screen.
Exploiting OKC's schemes.
Yeah, particularly their hedge and recover defense in the pick and roll. That's where the big defender steps out high for a second to stop the ball handler, then scrambles back. Minnesota found ways to attack that brief moment of vulnerability, creating mismatches or open threes as the defense rotated late.
Ah, okay. Tactical chess match.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that leads back to the role player stepping up, with Ant commanding all that attention, creating those advantages with his scoring and passing.
The shots were there.
The shots were there, and in Game 3 especially, the guys who were cold early, they started hitting them. Those open shots that had eluded them suddenly started falling. It was a perfect storm.
It really became a clinic on how one superstar through adjustment and sheer force of will, can unlock an entire offense, even against an elite, specialized defense. I saw analysts like Rick Barry on TNT comparing it to how MJ used to break down those old wall of defense schemes.
That's a great comparison. By Game 3, if you watch the film, you just see OKC's entire defensive structure unraveling. It couldn't hold up. And Edwards was the undeniable wrecking ball.
So this 3-game stretch, it's way more than just tactics, isn't it? It feels like a real landmark moment, solidifying Ant's place.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The narrative shifted like that. He went from promising youngster, which already felt like underselling him, to being the story of these playoffs.
Yeah.
And based on this performance against this defense, the conversation immediately jumped. Is he on track to be no longer the league's most promising player, but the outright best? People started asking that seriously.
And the comparisons started flying, didn't they? I saw Kevin Garnett calling him young 84 Jordan.
High praise. And, those doubters on social media who were loud after Game 1 saying he is not and never was a generational talent, this series pretty much silenced them.
You'd think so. His coach, his teammates, they talk about this it factor he has, bordering on the supernatural. ESPN had noted before the playoffs even started that for the Wolves to make a deep run, Edwards must fulfill his role as the leading star.
And did he ever? He didn't just fulfill it, he redefined it, demolished expectations.
And he's got the confidence to match. He backed up his own talk. Remember him saying, I think I'm the best player for sure, putting himself right there with Luka, Jokic, Embiid, Giannis.
Yeah, bold statement at the time.
But now, pundits are echoing that audacity. Some are even whispering, maybe not so quietly, that he might arguably be the MVP this season just based on his playoff impact.
It's incredible. You put his age, just 22, into historical context. Sources brought up Kobe. The only Laker under 23 with back-to-back 40-point playoff games was Kobe. Ant didn't hit 40 here, but back-to-back 30-plus against that defense with those adjustments. It's in that legendary young player territory.
Yeah, and the off-court potential, too. Alex Rodriguez, the Timberwolves co-owner, mentioned his killer instinct, talking about potential for Kobe-famous or Michael Ferris levels of stardom.
And with LeBron turning 40, Steph turning 36, you hear insiders saying it now pretty openly. Edwards stands as the favorite to be the next global face of the NBA. It makes sense.
The playoffs are where you make your fame, right? And this series against OKC, wow. It wasn't just a win, it was a statement.
Totally. He walked into the lion's den and left with the mane, as one source put it. The fire, the confidence, even the little bit of bombast.
Yeah.
It all just adds to the legend.
He absolutely seized this big moment to start building a big legacy.
So wrapping up this deep dive, what we saw was just a stunning, rapid transformation. Anthony Edwards goes from struggling mightily against the league's supposed best defense in Game 1
Completely bottled up.
to spearheading a historic 42-point demolition by Game 3. He didn't just adapt. He systematically exposed the flaws in that swarming wall. He basically carried his team from looking lost to executing this daring, brilliant offensive game plan.
Yeah, the conclusion feels pretty stark. The Minnesota Timberwolves guard has, without a doubt, arrived on the grandest stage. He's doing it with a skill and a swagger that, yeah, you have to call generational.
If you were wondering who the future face of the NBA might be, well, over those 3 games, Anthony Edwards just handed you an answer, pretty convincingly.
So here's the final thought to leave you with. Considering how quickly he diagnosed, adjusted, and then just dismantled arguably the best defense he's ever faced, what does this series tell us about his ultimate potential? Like, what even is his ceiling?
Right, and maybe just as interesting, looking ahead, how do other elite defenses even begin to game plan for him now? Do they have to fundamentally rethink their core strategies just to have a chance at containing Anthony Edwards going forward?
Big questions. What stood out most to you about Ant's adjustments or his dominance in this series against OKC? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Let us know.
And hey, if you found this deep dive valuable, please hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss our next analysis.